Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America Trading Corporation. For those of you who've been tuning in for a while, you already knew that. And welcome to our most recent episode of our podcast entitled The Secret War on Cash, where we take a look at some of the changing dynamics in our financial system, our financial markets, the economy, both global and domestic, just all the various things. And I have with me today my co-host, my frequent co-host, Chris Agolestos. Chris, good morning to you today.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Doing very well. We've kicked off the month of June. We're almost to the halfway point of the calendar year. It's kind of unbelievable.
Crazy.
Certainly been no shortage of things to talk about, and
Yeah.
things are going to certainly be intensifying as well as we get into this election season, which I don't know if I would say I can't wait for, because that would probably be not true. What I can't wait for is for the election season to be over, and hopefully, Lord willing, and knock on wood, no more political calls. But
Right.
I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. So
No kidding.
nonetheless, we've talked about a lot of various topics already in the course of this year. One of them, a frequent one, being BRICS. And we'll have CC put up on our screen right now the first article I wanted to talk about. As you see, entitled 97 Countries Prepare to Attend BRICS 2024 in June in Russia. 97 countries. Now, when I read that, Chris, it's interesting. I actually had Siri tell me how many countries there are in the world. I never really knew. I know there's quite a few. The number is 195, and 193 of which are all UN associated nations. So when you start looking at that in terms of 97 of the countries out there that are going to attend this BRICS summit, that's a lot. That's literally half the countries throughout the world. And they seem to be pretty closely aligned in terms of their motivation for doing it. It is to a great extent, they want to help strengthen their own domestic currencies. But the main thing, if you look at the starting point of BRICS, when Putin and Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa got involved, they want to dethrone the U.S. dollar. This is not a passive play on their part. This is not something that they're just saying, we're not sure the dollar is going to be okay. They are saying that, but the biggest thing that they have also said is they want to dethrone the U.S. dollar. So with taking a look at this article, Chris, 97 countries that are preparing to attend, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, what do you think that this really is as big as it would sound, just if nothing else, based on the sheer number of participants?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we already know that BRICS controls about half of the money supply in the world now. They've grown quite a bit over the last several years. So I guess it makes sense in a way that about half the countries in the world would be attending this. They've got another 40 nations that are applying and looking to join BRICS. And they're going to be voting on that at another summit in Russia as well in October. And they're going to decide, who they let in, basically, who's going to be a good member of the team. And what I kind of remind people is that this is sort of like a club, right? There's people that are joining this club, and when you join a club, it's because you have members there that have similar interests. And in this case, these members are looking to grow their own economies, reduce their reliance on the U.S. dollar, and improve their situation, which unfortunately affects us as we've been able in the United States to enjoy U.S. dollar dominance for all of my lifetime. We're getting closer and closer to a time where that just simply isn't going to be the case.
Well, for sure. And I mean, it's we were talking just several months ago on this podcast in terms of participants included with potential participants, numbers in the 20s, a couple dozen. Now when you start looking at I think that's a good analogy you give. It's like joining a club, but it's joining a club that has a lot of spending power, a lot of political clout, and certainly the bigger it gets, you know, the more leverage it has.
Yep.
You know, there are some big countries, there are a lot of small countries, but the benefit of that is, you know, with that breadth that they have in terms of all these nations, there's a lot of strength in that breadth, and that leads into the second article we have here, which I found to be, as I found this article, I found it to be very timely to the first article, because it's the United States reacting to the BRICS de-dollarization agenda. Mm-hmm. And it's a really quick read, but as I started going through it, you know, the Fed's Christopher Waller, he's acknowledging the fact that the BRICS de-dollarization campaign has grown bigger, but in his words, it has not affected the US dollar. Now, as I read that, and then in fact, he went on to say, Chris, that he explains that Americans don't need to worry about the US dollar. It's still the most traded currency throughout the world, with all the transactions that take place, even despite these, quote, de-dollarization threats that BRICS brings to the table. With this being said, as I read these comments by Christopher Waller, mm-hmm. it reminded me of the same comments that we're getting, you know, from the talking heads on Wall Street and from elected officials about like price inflation. If you were to ask them, it doesn't exist. We don't need to worry about it. They've assured right. us at length. And mm-hmm. yet every single aspect of our life, everyone's life, has been ridden with inflation mm-hmm. recently. And it seems as though that's something that's, you know, only going to get worse before it gets better. So is there any credence or credibility that we should put in these remarks of Christopher Waller? Is this something that, you know, this BRICS thing is just going to go away, or it's not going to affect the dollar? Because, you know, correct, the dollar is the king on the throne right now. That's true of every king until they get dethroned. Is that something that we may be looking at?
Oh, yeah. I think, look, let's look at a couple of facts of what he talks about in here. First of all, the Feds are acknowledging BRICS efforts to dethrone the dollar. And they're acknowledging that BRICS has grown quite a bit bigger. If it wasn't a threat at all, they wouldn't even be commenting about it, right? They wouldn't even be trying to reassure us. And unfortunately, I think most people in the country will probably agree with me, when the government tells you not to worry, a lot of times that's when you need to start worrying and looking a little bit deeper into what they're saying. He also specifically mentions in here that don't worry, that the US dollar is still the most widely used, using a number of different metrics. And that takes us right back to your example of inflation. They have some different metrics that they use to calculate inflation that says we have nothing to worry about there. Yet all of us know when we go to the store, it costs us a lot more money to live today than it did even just a few years ago. So you can create a formula or a metric, if you will, to give you any desired outcome if you tweak the factors that you're looking at and ignore the ones that don't help your case. And so I definitely think there's a reason to be concerned here. It doesn't mean I'm a doom and gloomer and I think the dollar is going to disappear tomorrow, but this is a real problem, and we really aren't equipped at this point to completely eliminate it. So it is something I believe that we're going to have to continue to deal with. We're going to continue to see the negative effects of a downward dollar and a global economy that is not as reliant on us as it used to be. And I think we're all going to feel the ramifications from that. I think the sun is still going to rise tomorrow, but I don't think that the dollar is going to overcome all of this.
Sure. Well, and to that point, the sun is going to rise tomorrow, and it will set tomorrow. But it has been doing that long before the U.S. dollar was ever even in existence. So right. My point being is that that in and of itself, a great example you have showing that things do in fact change. And what causes change is when people decide to do something different, like these 97 countries are, than what they've been doing. And I think you bring up an excellent point, or touch on an excellent point as well. You know, the fact that we're getting the assurance that everything's going to be okay is probably a good indication that there may be a problem out there. And for those of you tuning in, this is exactly why, if you have not already, contact our office and get a free copy of our Secret War Report. Very informative, just to talk about some of these issues and the effect and the toll it may take on each and every one of us in terms of our finances, our investments, the world we live in, everything around us. You can do that at 1-800-289-2646. Visit us online if you haven't done that either at www.swissamerica.com, and you can get a copy of that there, or any other information specifically as well pertaining to what's happening in the precious metals market. As it has been, if there's been one positive aspect to some of these things that have been happening, has been the rise in metals. So thank you, Chris. And if you're not following this podcast or subscribed, please do so. Follow us on social media. And until next time, have a great rest of your day.